Jaya Radha Madhava Anjali Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Anjali Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Anjali Hari Jaya Radha Anjali Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Good morning. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
In the earlier days of the we didn't have the volume. Prabhupada had brought some copies with him, but the BBT was in its early stages. The idea of printing big volumes wasn't practical. There's no money for it. Prabhupada begged the printer in Japan to print a Krishna book because that was so essential. Can't love someone you don't know. So the idea was to love Krishna. Maybe I'll play a song later that explains that. But for now, the idea was that Prabhupada felt that we had to know Krishna to love him. When you don't study the 10 cantos, still study the other 9. So Prabhupada incorporated the teachings of all 9 cantos. But the actual Bhagavatam is only available for the few books Prabhupada brought with him. So instead, BBT was produced in chapters. And the second canto was produced in chapters, such as this chapter, Cause of All Causes. So we had these small books. And actually it was quite helpful because it allowed us to really focus on a real, didn't have much to do on a particular aspect. And the cause of all causes is one of the most philosophically important chapters you can. And before we get into the chapter, I'll give an example. Let us look at the painting, Srinath. Now, looking at that painting of Lord Srinath, we can then think, if I really want to understand that painting, the best way to do it is to hire a chemist. And that chemist will then analyze for me what pigments are used in the paint. And will analyze for me what materials are used in the canvas. And will analyze for me how light reflects off the painting. And then when I'm done, will I understand that painting? Obviously not. This is the modern scientific method, in which we try to understand something by controlling it. We try to understand by control. By control, I mean I can go to a laboratory and scrape paint off and analyze which pigments are used. Sometimes the red pigments disgustingly come from crushing a certain kind of bug. It's one of the way red pigments have been made. And then we can analyze the white pigments comes from titanium dioxide. Does anybody here use titanium dioxide today? Yes, you have. All of you have. It's the white in toothpaste. Yes, I hope you have. Okay. So we can analyze the titanium dioxide, like in the toothpaste. We can analyze all of this, and we still don't understand the picture. Why? Because there's a purpose behind the picture. And more than that, there's an artist behind the picture. And the artist is giving us a picture like that, a very deep emotions. And when you look at that picture, you can see the deep emotions of Prahlad, people surrounding him, and the Sringadev, Brahmikasa he spiritual different emotion at that time, defeat. But all the emotions that go into quite deep. And anytime you look at a picture, it's quite deep, in a good picture. Some modern art, I think, is quite shallow. But that's a different story. So, one famous artist made a picture of a Campbell's soup can that became immensely popular. I was life in that, I could never figure out why. So, but the artist has a purpose, and he had some purpose behind it. Maybe silly purpose, but good art has a great purpose behind it. Has anybody here seen the Mona Lisa? Yeah, seen it. I wasn't so impressed, but anyway, it's there, you know. But I mean, when we look at it, the last thing we're going to think about the Mona Lisa is what are the paint pigments? We're thinking, what was the artist thinking? What was the thinking when he made it? And the big question is, was a woman, who was she? She has that look on her face, such serenity. Some say, oh, only a pregnant woman has such glowing. Could have been this, could have been that. But we can think about it. There's a purpose behind it. There's something way beyond material elements. That's what this chapter is about. We want to know, go a little deeper. The material scientist, I'm a material scientist. I do science. I run a science institute. But at our institute, we're much less concerned. We need to know the science to present it to intelligent people. So we have biologists, astrophysicists, quantum physicists, geologists, chemists, of course, we're all there. But we want to know what's behind it. We want to know teleology. Somebody define teleology for me. Teleology. Oh, I'll read that, please.
It says, the explanation.
Well, we try.
Google knows all.
The explanation of phenomena in terms of the purpose is served rather than the cause by which they arise.
The purpose. It's the purpose. You know, everything has a purpose. It's one of my favorite fish. Oh, there's a porpoise. Okay. But it has a purpose to it. It has a reason. What's the reason behind it? That picture has a reason behind it. The reason isn't to display pigments. So the weakness in science is we miss the teleology. We miss the purpose behind it. Now, take something that I can control. For example, let's take a typical laboratory instrument. Somebody name a laboratory instrument. Microscope. Okay, microscope. So we take a microscope. Now with a microscope, I can take the paint and I can analyze it, and I can control it. I can absolutely control it. I can focus it, I can do different slides, and I can have different colored lights go through the object and tell me different things. I can send a polarized light through a thin slice of the pigment, and it'll tell me a lot about the paint and how it's aligned. There's all kinds of things I can control with the microscope. And when I'm done spending hours and hours with the microscope, examining, it tells me nothing about the purpose of that painting. Nothing at all. So, we'll use another big word. Epistemology. Somebody define epistemology. Yes.
As far as I know, it's a study of the origin of something.
Almost. Getting close, getting more, but it's more specific than that, but it's close. That's ontology would be a better word for that. how something compares to being. But you're getting close. On epistemology, very, very important. Yes, good.
The way we know things.
The way we know things. How do we know what we know? So this is the science of epistemology. That's what we're getting into in this chapter. How do we know what we know? And now, I know something. And I know something that you want to know. It's very, very important. One person was recently kidnapped. He had a very large cryptocurrency account. You all know what cryptocurrency is? Yeah, still haven't figured out. But it's something. It's so sensitive. Anyway, but it's the furthest thing from the gold standard you can imagine. And so much cheating in its name and no regulation. But it's cryptocurrency. This guy had millions and millions of dollars in cryptocurrency. Now, how do you move cryptocurrency? It's something you put in your hand. You go to a computer and you punch in a password. You can access the cryptocurrency. You can move it anywhere in the world and steal it. There's no record that you stole it. So it's the perfect crime. So this guy had millions of dollars of cryptocurrency. And in New York, it's very recent, this happened last few months. Some rogues captured the guy. They took him to an apartment and they said, we'll let you go, just give us your password for millions of dollars of cryptocurrency, which then they can move to an offshore account and no one can trace what happened. This is cryptocurrency. And he said, what would you say? Somebody said, give me your password. What would you say? What would you say?
Yeah.
Would you give me your password? Your whole life savings, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
He said, what we'd all say. No, it was in New York, so he probably said no in a more dramatic fashion. The New Yorkers have a very dramatic way of saying no. Very, very dramatic. But I won't repeat it in the classroom. So he said no, and they got mad. So they collected electrical shocks. They held him out the window, said we're going to drop him. They beat him. And this went on for 3 weeks. He still wouldn't give it to him. Finally, one day they thought he had passed out. They went out to the store and he escaped and called the cops. The people got arrested. So why is this story important? Well, because if you want to get something from somebody who has knowledge, you can sometimes torture and get it, but generally you get it by pleasing them. So if I want to get knowledge of something lesser than I can get my microscope out, my telescope out, my oscilloscope out, my this scope or that scope. And if I want to know how my intestines are, I can get my colonoscopy scope out. You can get everything out. You have all different kinds of scopes you have. Go every place there is. So you can get scopes and try to examine it. But if I want to get knowledge from something greater than me, it's a different method. And the method is generally service. So let's say I have the password to the internet here. You want that password. You might torture me, you may get it, not. But if you pleased me, you can give it to you very readily. Oh, Brahma, you are just, and you walk in the room, the whole room lights up. I see an aura surrounding you. Your bald head is always, whatever you say. Oh, yes, here's my password. Please have it. So there's this idea here that by service you get knowledge of what's greater than you, and by control you get knowledge of what's less than you. So the scientific method, which gets us many great products, I mean, we've all been on airplanes and taken medicine that got us better. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Prabhupada said to Bhaktivinoda Institute, these scientists, they are very proud for all they have done. And they've done a lot, so treat them with respect. That's what Prabhupada instructed us. So they've done a lot. I mean, I don't want to take a slow boat to India. I want to take a 747 or whatever and just get there. I wish they had a supersonic. Don't want a sticky tube for 18 hours. So, so it's not the scientists haven't done anything, but what they've done is what they can control. But greater knowledge requires service. So now we're getting to what this chapter, the cause of all causes, is about saying. How do I know the cause of all causes? And in this chapter, Narada Muni is speaking to none other than Lord Brahma. Now, Lord Brahma is the first creature. What Narada is recognized. He says, begins a chapter, O chief among the demigods, O firstborn living entity. Please tell me the transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual and super soul. My dear Father, please describe facts and symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How? How is it created? How is it concerned? Under whose control is it being done? He is taking the opposite of the common science approach. He's not saying, he said, Brahma, can you please tell me how hurricanes form and how I can predict them? These are the things we can control. At least we can observe. Nobody's saying, what's behind it? What's the purpose? Who did the painting of the Sringavada and why? That's what he's asking. He's asking the big question in this chapter. And when this book came out, just as a separate book called The Cause of All Causes, it created quite a stir among those of us who were taking up Krishna consciousness, because it raised a deeper question. Remember, when this book came out, it was a little different time than now. This came out, it was early 70s. There was Vietnam War was going on very long. People were drafted. We used to say then Canada may be very cold, but it wasn't drafted. So people fled to Canada. And civil rights was a real mess. Just in the town of Gainesville, there were 2 water fountains at public places, one labeled white and the other colors. In Gainesville, here, walking distance from where we sit. Walking distance where we sit is the last public university to say a black person can attend University of Florida. If you were of a different orientation, sexual orientation, you were severely persecuted. Severely persecuted. Then a John's Commission, they'd walk around trying to guess who might be there. There was that. And it wasn't considered a private matter, it was considered that there was anybody know the story of Ed Turing? Ed Turing. I mean, who's heard of the Turing test? What is a Turing test?
I heard of it, I don't remember.
The question is, how do we know when a machine is conscious? So the Turing test, invented by Ed Turing, was a test he gave to say if the machine's conscious. Of course, no machine is conscious, so, but he came up with it. Ed Turing won World War II. Never heard of it. We won World War II. I didn't know how we won World War II. English computer expert, yes.
There was a film about it.
There was films, books.
Yeah, there was a movie and he apparently also inspired Apple. But he was a computer genius who kind of invented the first computer, which was
Yes.
massive, and he cracked the German codes and then predicted where they were. So he knew where they were going to attack. So Allies won.
Yeah, he cracked the German code. So during World War II, the Allies knew where the Germans' next move was going to be. And they faked them out. When it came time to invade Normandy, they faked out the Germans. They convinced the Germans that the invasion was going to hundreds and hundreds of miles to the east. And I'm sure they built a whole false army at that point in England, opposite this other short point. You know, just they had like tanks made of cardboard. And so for distance, it looked like that's where the whole army was staged. It was actually staged at Normandy. And then they invaded. And he sent false coded messages to Germans. They thought it was legitimate. And he actually won the war, probably more than anybody. But he was gay. Then after the war, he had a gay affair, mutually consensual. And they found out about it and arrested him. Then they chemically castrated him. And it made him so crazy, killed himself. Number one scientist. So I'm telling these stories to give a context. And the context, when the cause of all causes came out, it was a very tumultuous time. And there was a great faith in science. Sputnik had gone up. They had sent by then rockets to the moon. And there was a great faith in science. At the same time, society, like now, is just falling apart in so many ways. People persecuted for no fault of their own, being born black, or born of a different orientation, or born a woman, or being born in anything, had heavily bodily concepts. It was a very disturbing time. And because there was a draft, we were all philosophers. There was a draft now to be a lot more philosophers. Because when you're faced with being sent to Vietnam in the jungle by being drafted, you're philosophical. So in that time, Prabhupada came out with a brilliant idea. Let's take a few of these key chapters and make them into little books. And this was one. And it really stirred whoever see this book. It stirred them. Those people at that, not whoever, most people. Because we live at a time where there's so much turmoil going on. Like right now, it's again a time of extreme turmoil. But it was even more than. And it was so much turmoil. What is the cause? What is the purpose? What's the reason? So material science is saying, we know it all. They don't. They just know what the pigments are. They don't know what's behind it. What's it all about? It's a great song like that, too. We're not talking about that. So, that's what this chapter, that's this content. Now we're going to go to verse 16, main verse of the day. I'll read another verse here in the book. An artist says, whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, we name things. We think if we name them, we know it. I'll give you an example. What's the cause of gravity? Somebody tell me. Mass, some say. They say behind it is the graviton. But they never found it. Or what's 95% of the universe composed of?
Empty space.
What's it composed of according to modern cosmologists, astronomers?
Dark matter.
Dark matter. What does it look like?
No.
We don't know. What's it taste like? We don't know. We know nothing about it. But we named it. And because we named it, we think we know what it is. Paper came out last week and said, by the way, maybe there isn't dark matter, it's a mathematical error. I don't know the answer. We don't know. So we think when we name things, we know more about them just by naming it. Name graviton, name of dark matter. It's a name, it doesn't understand. Very important point. So that's what Narada is saying. Whatever we understand by nomenclature, characteristics and features, superior, inferior, eternal, or temporary, is not created from any source other than your lordship. So great. Yet. So he's talking Brahman's a creator. Everything's created by you. Yet. He says yet. The yet is so important. We wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you because you were meditating. Who were you meditating on? I want to know that. The cause of all causes. You're an intermediary cause. I want to know the deeper cause. Very, very deep cause. My dear Father, you know everything. You're the controller of all. Therefore, may all that I've inquired from you be kindly instructed to me, so I may be able to understand it as your student. Lord Brahma replied, my dear Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I have been inspired to see the prowess, the greatness of the almighty personality of God. We're going to skip ahead a little bit to verse 16. All different types that we see. Narayana, 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 Paragati. All different types of meditation or mysticism are means for realizing Narayana. Now, Narayana is just another name of God. Some people get bewildered. God has many names. So do I. When I meet with city officials, Bob, when I meet other places, I'm Mr. Cohen, meet devotees of Brahma. When I'm with my children, they call me Pita. I'm with my wife, she calls me Oskar. So we have many different names, all of us, like what we're doing. All austerities are aimed at achieving Narayana. Culture of transcendental knowledge is for getting a glimpse of Narayana and ultimately salvation is in the King of Narayana. In meditation, there are two systems of yoga, Ashtanga and Sankhya. Ashtanga is a practice in concentrating the mind. We just sitting postures and block the air. Nothing wrong with Ashtanga yoga. Yoga controls the mind, strengthens the body. But Sankhya yoga is a great yoga. What does Sankhya yoga mean? Sankhya yoga is a system to distinguish the truth from ephemerals. Ephemerals is temporary things. Truth is permanent essence. But ultimately, both the systems are meant for realizing the impersonal Brahman, which is but a partial representation of refinement, the personality of God. As we have explained before, the impersonal Brahman effulgence is only part of the personality of God. Now, skip ahead a little. Oneness with the impersonal Brahma Yogi is not ultimate liberation. Superior to that is a sublime association of the personality of Godhead in one of the innumerable spiritual planets. Therefore, the conclusion is that Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, or Krishna, or Vishnu, is the ultimate destination. Inspired by him, the verse continues, I discovered what is already created by him under his vision, the all-pervading super soul, and I, Brahma, am also created by him only. So this is the essence, that there is a cause of all causes. And finally, the section concludes, O Brahmana, Narada, the super-seer, the transcendental Lord, is beyond the perception of material senses of the living entities because of the above-mentioned laws of nature, but he is controller of everyone. And previously, I should actually read that. The three modes of nature being further manifestation as matter, knowledge, activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for activities. And what that means is we think we're the controller, but we're actually so controlled by the laws of nature. Who here has woken up in bed, got out on the wrong side of the bed, and I should have stayed on the covers? Who has done that? Who has done that today? And that's the modes of nature. We want to get up. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm alive. The sun is up. It's a good day. And I get to eat breakfast eventually. This is wonderful. I am a grouch. I'm an unrepentant grouch. It's called the modes of nature. Controlling us all the time. So here, we describe that we can be, these two modes of nature are controlling us, but the Supreme Lord is above the modes of nature. He is a controller of everyone. He is beyond crouchiness. So, if we connect with that Supreme Lord, we plug into that, we can also cure crouchiness. And I'll tell a story that will put that in context. There's a very dear friend of mine, one of the most advanced devotees I know. He runs an educational program in Oxford. Very Shankar Rishi, brilliant, one of the smartest people I know. He's Irishman. His nickname is Shanika Orishi. She's an Irishman. And he set up a program in Oxford. Oxford used to offer a reward, this is the 1800s, for the best refutation of Hinduism. Because India was conquered by Great Britain. They wanted to prove that Christianity was superior. So the #1 theological college in the world would offer an award for the best refutation of Hinduism. I've read the documents, this is all true. Now, Hinduism at Oxford is run all by Hare Krishna devotees. We are the official center at Oxford that does Hindu and Vaishnava studies. Things have come around. This is all by the genius of Shankar Krishna. He's such a genius. Figured out how to do it. He was at an interfaith conference. And at this interfaith conference, it was Keith Ward. If you ever listen to YouTube, Keith Ward is worth listening to. Theologian, chief theologian of Oxford. I know him. He's philosophy of science. When he speaks on philosophy of science, from the theological, so convinced. And after this interfaith conference, Shanika turns, talks to Keith Ward, and he said, I liked your presentation. I'd like to see your master's books. Shanika, instead of sending him a book, he sent a whole card case of Bhagavatam. 6 months later, he ran into Professor Ward. Said to Professor Ward, did you get the books? Professor Ward said, the very understated English, the way English would speak, yes, I read them all. And she did. It's not something everyone in this room can claim to have done. Said, I read them all. You should do something with us. That was it. Shanika misunderstood what that meant. He was just invited to set up a center at Oxford. Because Englishmen understand things. And he talked to another colleague later. He said, Professor Ward he liked the books and said I should do something. He said, don't you get it? He just invited me to be part of Oxford. And it happened. So Shanika is one of the most Krishna conscious people I know. Very, very focused and a very good jokester. As a little aside, I'll tell you this jokes just to keep you awake. This Irish nun was teaching 10-year-old Matilda. 10-year-old Matilda, she says, 10-year-old Matilda, what do you want to do when you grow up? And she says, sister, I want to be a prostitute. Nun goes, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, what did you say? I want to be a prostitute when I grow up. And the nun goes, thank God. I thought you had said Protestant. So that's shut up. Very jokes. But then something happened tragic. His wife died a horrible, tragic death. His wife had been sick for a long time. And then, without going into detail, she died a most tragic, just horrible. And there was an inquest from the government later. Why did an ambulance take 2 hours to drive 1 mile? Something had gone wrong with the system. It was time for her to. And Shanika is a very, very close friend. As soon as his wife died, I called him up. Just, how can I say? The first words out of his mouth shocked me to this day. And his words, I don't know if I could utter. Shanika meant it, so he uttered. The words were, Krishna is kind. Krishna is kind. Because he understood cause of all causes is Krishna. He understood the purport of this chapter, that everything happens for a reason. And even though it's the most tragic day of his life, behind it, Krishna has a purpose. And later, when he said those words, he said it with such conviction. Not that, why a horrible wife, Krishna's kind, Father got rid of her. No, it wasn't that at all. He adored his wife adored him. It wasn't at all like that. It was he understood that even at the worst of times, Krishna's kind. And we can only understand that. We can only get to that point if we understand this chapter of the Bhagavatam, that Krishna is the cause of all causes. When something bad happens to you, what do? We blame others. We don't realize it may be our lot. Maybe what's supposed to happen. That Krishna is the cause of causes. It's something that's very easy to theoretically talk about. It's not so easy to accept. Therefore, Narada Muni is quizzing Brahma this whole chapter on this one point. Explain this to me from this angle. Explain it from that angle. I need to really understand who is behind you. Because I know you're this great creator, you do everything. You make planets appear, you do everything. But you're praying to someone. Who are you praying to? I want to know. And that's the deep inquiry that's going on in this chapter. We'll pause here in a few minutes for questions, comments, reflections. Yes.
So on the point of trying to analyze meaning through scientific, then I feel like the next level is it's like, okay, once we understand the artist, it's Michelangelo, like let's psychoanalyze who it is. And then that's the next level of understanding. Like, okay, he has bipolar, schizophrenic, personality disorder. So that's why we can understand why he would be inclined to create this image. So is there anything you can say on that? Because we talk about scientific method, but then there's also psychological analyzation.
Unpack that question a little more.
So even with this, like trying to understand the creator, that's what's going on. Because he's asking to know more about this person. Then asking is that the next part of trying to understand people is getting into psychology. So, okay, with your conclusion is like we can't fully understand somebody as a person or their intentions or what they're trying to express through scientific method, but through psychoanalyzation, someone can, I feel like people can say, well, now I understand this person because they fit into this category of personality disorder or archetype, etc. But I feel like you really can't understand somebody in this, you know them on a like deeper level.
Well, you were asking how deep can you know someone? How much can you love someone? Well, in order to love someone, and there's we'll help out with this for a moment. See if this works. You follow the words? Anybody heard that song before? 1958, Teddy Bears. And somehow I have a weird thing in my brain. I didn't even listen to these songs in those days, just in the background. And every once in a while they just pop up. And it reminds me of Krishna. So the secret of loving someone is to know them. In other words, we can have many religious people say, I love God. Well, who is he? What do you know about it? What's his name? Where does he live? What does he do? It means relationships. So what you're asking is, how do we establish deeper relationships? We establish deeper relationships by knowing. And there's all techniques. Mahatma's given brilliant courses on how to establish deeper bonds, deeper relationships by knowing how to be vulnerable, how to reveal one's mind, confidence. That's right from the Upadeshamrita. Rabindra Sarup's The Cure of Souls. All these brilliant courses talk about how we can know each other better so that ultimately we can know God better. And the way of knowing is to lower our false ego. So how do we lower our false ego? That's what we do every day. Why we chant, why we get up early, why we do the things that we do. It's like if you don't shower for 2 or 3 days. One time we had at Krishna House here a Hasidic rabbi movement. There are these very strict Jewish guys that have the side seekers and all of that, called side seekers. And he moved into Krishna House. This was, 30, 35 years ago. And he would chant japa and discuss theology. And he was sent here by the head rabbi. this guy was a little bit, to use the Yiddish word because he's Jewish, Meshuggah. Somebody know the word Meshuggah means? Common word in the New York area. Crazy in the head.
Mm.
Little crazy, but also sincere. So Rabbi Chaim used to call him Heimenstein, as in Frankenstein. Anyway, so Rabbi Chaim lived in the temple, chanted Shabbat. His secret mission was to find devotees of Jewish origin, bring them back to Judaism. And he caught one, who's now a devotee. And, some people are very vulnerable that way. And so Chaim lived here, and I learned a lot from him too. That in the Old Testament pointed out where Moses saw the back of God's head and had fine black hair, just like the description of Krishna. Very interesting comparisons. But on the Sabbath, Chaim would not shower. Why would Chaim not shower on Saturdays? Somebody tell me why.
Not supposed to work with it.
Say again?
You're not supposed to work with it because
Yeah, you're not supposed to use electricity on Saturday. You can't turn the switch on or off. And when you, very strict Jews, there's no work according to the Ten Commandments. Goes right back to that. And but they say there were 15 commandments. Moses dropped one of the tablets. Says it'll still be 10. But who knows what the story is? So anyway, so you have these. So he wouldn't shower on the Sabbath because when you use shower at Krishna house, it's electric hot water heater. And when you use up the hot water, the electricity kicks in. So he would have to throw the breaker to shower. Too lazy. So by Sunday, he was pretty smelly. Remember that. Everyone said, got to avoid him today. He's a big guy. He sweated a lot. He's a pretty smelly guy, but Sunday. So that is a metaphor for our false ego. If we don't shower every day, cleanse our false ego, we're going to be not necessarily physically smelly, but spiritually smelly. So that's what we do. We have to cleanse our false ego every day. Radha Swami told me, but one time we went for a 5-hour walk to discuss this one topic. He said, I lived so simple. I was a pujari, rang bells, broke the ice in the morning on the bucket, poured it over me to take my bath, and so it was then. No electricity where it was. And I said, I'm so happy. Now people praise me all day, worship me, touch my feet, blah, 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 blah. Said, every day I wake up and look in the mirror. I have to remind myself I'm the humble servant. I do everything I can. I can never let this go to my head. So I have to fight it every day. So here you have the great saintly person fighting it. What about the rest of us? How we have to fight our ego. So just like we have to fight body odor, we have to fight ego odor. We have to fight it every day. Maybe that answers your question. Sure.
It does answer part of it. So to clear my question is, do you feel like psychology is a good method of understanding someone in the same way that you're saying science isn't really a good method to understand a painting?
I'll tell you what Krishna says on that. Forget what I said. Krishna goes into a lot of psychology in the Gita. I mean, when I first read the Gita, I was kind of surprised, all the spiritual stuff, and you get to the later chapters, modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance. Krishna went into heavy, heavy psychology. So part of self-realization, knowing thyself, involves psychology. So not enough psychology is very dangerous. We can't know ourselves. Too much psychology, we get obsessed in the bodily concept of life. Oh, he likes me, doesn't like me. We can really get messed up in the mind. So the key is to take the middle road. Some psychology is needed, and some people need more psychological support than others. That's natural. Some people need more physical support than others. It's just natural. We're not all the same. So too much psychology, very dangerous, become, as we say, mental. Not enough psychology, We don't know who we are. If we don't know who we are, I mean, Arjuna didn't know who he was. He thought he was a yogi, should go off the woods and meditate. Krishna did a lot of psychology. He says, no, your nature is a fighter, so fight for me. So if we want to do what we do best for Krishna, there's a certain amount of psychology that's needed. Not like the three bears, not too hot, not too cold, not too much, not too little. So we need a three bears approach to this. For those who don't know the three bears, you can read it afterwards. I think you all know it, but if you don't, that's culturally an American thing. Does that answer your question? Okay, any others? Well, not, we'll stop here. Yes. Last question. Thank you.
So you say to love someone, one has to know them to love. But I'm thinking, or maybe the song was saying that you want to know someone, then you love someone. First you love, then you know. Because many times I have seen like, if I'm friendly to you, if I have affection to you, then you're happy to tell me what you are.
Well, I asked Prabhupada this question. What comes first? This may be it's not necessarily universal for everyone. Prabhupada said to me, first comes knowledge, then austerity, and then the love comes. Because me, it's the way my brain's wired. I need to know something. Somebody else may just take up, just absolutely fall in love with the deity, fall in love with the form of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, and then they may say, now I want to know more. So I'm not saying that it's the same for everyone. It's not. We can put it very simple, different slopes for different folks. So we're radical persons, so it's not all the same. I can speak from my own experience. That doesn't mean it's necessarily best for you. The goal is the same, to love Krishna. For me, I got to know Krishna to love. But to somebody else, may just be more advanced than me, previous life, they've already understood so much. They one time see the form of the deities, and I'm going to be Pujari the rest of my life, and I know exactly like that. Still doing it 50 years later. So we can go either way. So it's a nice question to ask. So I don't mean to imply what works for me is necessarily the best for everyone. But I find in my experience for most people, they need to know to love. If I would be a matchmaker, and I go and I say, okay, I want to, I'm a matchmaker here, and I'm introducing you to this nice lady. Do you love her? But you haven't met her yet. You haven't seen her. Well, tell me something about her. Well, she has one eye and one ear. But they're a very pretty eye and a very pretty ear. I mean, what are you going to think at that point?
If I love you, then whatever you give me, I will take it.
I know, but that's all you know about her. It's one eye and one ear. That's all you know, nothing else. You see the problem. But you know the person, it doesn't make a difference. You see, so there's a lot to be said on this topic, but anytime a class interferes with breakfast, it's going on too long. So with that, we will stop here. Thank you all very much. Have a blessed day. And anyone who wants to know the cause of all causes, have a lot of fun. Read that chapter. It's a short read. It's a lot of fun. I read it before coming to class this morning. I refreshed myself. I said, wow, what a remarkable chapter. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anybody here going to New York Rath Yatra? Well, I know somebody going.
Oh, John.
Krishna